Okay, so today we're going to do solving cubic equations. So when we solve an equation, obviously we're going to get an equals sign in the equation. So you can see that here in the first one. So we've been practicing factorizing, and so once you've factorized to solve a cubic equation, you need to factorize the equation, and then we would let the equation equal 0, so move it all onto one side, factorize it, and then use the Null Factor Law where you let each factor equal 0. So with this first example, it's already been factorized, and we've got one side equaling 0, so we're going to let each factor equal 0, and that's because of the Null Factor Law. And x plus 3 equals 0. So we could have x equals positive 2, x equals, sorry, that was plus 1, x equals negative 1, or x equals negative 3. So what we'll see later when we do end up sketching them, we will see that we have 3 intercepts. So we might see something like that, where that was negative 3, negative 1, and positive 2. Okay, so with this next example, so we have moved everything onto the one side and we've let it equal 0. So we've moved it over, and now we're going to factorize it. So we are going to think of, so we're going to use like the square root theorem. So we need factors of 30 and 1. So factors of 30 include so on. We've got plus or minus 1, plus minus 2, plus minus 3, etc., etc. So I'm going to try first. Remember, like we always say, try p of 1. So I might try p of 1 first. So p of 1, I get 1 cubed minus 4 times 1 squared minus 11 times 1 plus 30. And if I do that, that'll be 1 minus 4 minus 11 plus 30, and this does not equal 0, so therefore I'm going to try something else. So I'm going to try p of 2. So p of 2, I get 2 cubed minus 4 times 2 squared minus 11 times 2 plus 30, so I get 8 minus, that's 4 times 4, so minus 16 minus 22 plus 30, and if you look at that, we get 0. So if we get 0, therefore we now know that x plus, not x plus, therefore we know that x minus 2, so the opposite, remember b here is 2, is a factor. Okay, so once we've got a factor, like the other day, so we are going to now use that factor and do division into our original cubic. Okay, so x into x cubed goes x squared, and then we get x cubed minus 2x squared, minus them out, that becomes a minus 2x squared here. So x into negative 2x squared is negative 2x. We bring the 11x down, and we've got negative 2x squared plus, because the negative 2 times the 2 is positive, so positive 4x, but we are going to subtract that, so that gets to be negative 15x. Then we bring this guy down, plus 30, so x into negative 15 goes negative 15, so we get negative 15x plus 30, because a negative by a negative, we're going to subtract that, and we should get 0. So that's what we want. So just going to Okay, I'm just going to take that over to the other page so we have a bit more room. So, sorry, move that up. So we now know that that original cubic had a factor of x minus 2, and we've also got now the new quadratic up there, so x squared minus 2x minus 15. So we need to see if we can factorize this quadratic, so factors of x are x, and factors of negative 15, we could have negative 5 and positive 3. That would give me negative 5x and negative plus 3x, and they add to give that one. So we now have the factors being x minus 2 and x minus 5 and x plus 3. Okay, all equaling 0. So because we're solving it, we can say x minus 2 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0. So we've got x equals 2, x equals 5, or x equals negative 3. So when we go to graph that one later, however it looks, so roughly when we later talk about graphs, so this one will be go something like that. So we got this will be the negative 3, 2 and 5, etc. Okay, but we'll do that later. And then use, sorry. Okay, so now we've got another example of x cubed minus 4x squared minus 11 plus 44. So sometimes we can we can factorize by grouping 2 by 2 or whatever, using grouping. So for example, I could group these and that. So what we're going to see, if I take what's common in this one, which is x squared out, I'm left with x minus 4. And if I take what's common here, which is 11, so if I take minus 11 out, I'd be left with x minus 4 equals 0. And if you remember back when we were factorizing using grouping, remember, so now this is essentially a common factor. So you take that out the front and you put whatever you're left with, which is x squared minus 11 equals 0. Now, so now you can factorize this. We're going to change this one to be like the difference of perfect squared. So I can write 11 like that as a squared term. And if you remember back to the pattern, if you have a squared term minus a squared term, it always equals a plus b, a minus b. So I can factorize that last one. So I've got the x minus 4, but this x squared minus square root could be x plus square root 11, x minus square root 11. Okay, so therefore when you solve, and we're saying that equals 0, so x could equal 4, or x could equal plus or minus square root 11. Okay, so we could do this next one, the same, grouping. And so if you have a look, x squared is common in this first one. So if I take x squared out, I'm left with x minus a. And then if I take the 11 that's common, so minus 11 out, I'm left with x minus a, because we need to be able to go back. So a minus by a minus would give positive 11a. So we let equal 0, but as I said before, you can see that this is common, so you put that out the front like you were if you were doing common factor, and you put the rest into the other brackets. And this one's just like the one before. So we, so we've got x minus a, so we can change that to a squared term again by doing that. We got the same. So x minus a, x plus square root 11, x minus square root 11 equals 0, so x equals a or x equals plus or minus square root 11. Okay? Okay, if you're on your calculator, and you want to solve a quadratic equation, or a polynomial equation, or a cubic, you simply just use the solve function. So you could just go solve and type whatever the equation is. So say if you wanted to check the one we just did, just do x cubed minus 4x squared minus 11x plus 4 equals 0, and you get comma x, and you'll get your answer. Okay, thank you.